Commander Hannah Park stood at the viewport of the diplomatic vessel, her dark eyes fixed on the gleaming silver spires of the Galactic Council headquarters. The massive structure floated in space, a testament to the unity of 1,000 alien civilizations. Behind her, Earth's small delegation prepared for the quarterly summit, unaware that this day would change humanity's future forever. Hannah adjusted her navy blue uniform, the single gold star on her collar marking her as humanity's military liaison. After 20 years of provisional membership in the Council, Earth still struggled to find its voice among ancient civilizations that measured their histories in millennia rather than centuries. "Commander, we're receiving a request for your presence in Subchamber 17, her aide said, checking his tablet. Something about resource allocation discussions. Hannah frowned. That wasn't on the schedule. It came directly from Counselor Reth's office. She nodded and made her way through the station's curved corridors. Reth represented the Volderi, one of the few council species that had consistently supported humanity's integration. The Council's Byzantine politics meant Earth needed every ally it could find. The subchamber was empty when she arrived, its oval table bare except for a single datapad. Hannah approached it cautiously, years of military training making her wary of unexpected situations. The screen activated at her touch, revealing encrypted files that shouldn't have been accessible to her clearance level. The first document made her blood run cold. Assessment of Human Expansion Threat. Final Recommendation. As she read, her hands began to shake. The document detailed plans to contain humanity's growth using a multi-phase approach. The Council's inner circle had secretly classified humans as a destabilizing element due to their unpredictable advancement patterns and genetic predisposition toward aggression. A sound at the door made her quickly download the files to her personal device. She turned to see Reth entering, his elongated blue face grim. "You found it," he said quietly. "I hoped you would." "What is this?" Hannah demanded. "Is this official?" "It was approved last month. I only learned of it yesterday." Reth's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of distress in his species. "They're calling it the Humanity Containment Protocol. The first phase begins today." Today. Hannah's heart raced. "We need to warn Earth immediately." "That's why I arranged this. My position on the Resource Committee won't protect me for long, but I couldn't stand by while." The station's lights suddenly shifted to deep red, and an announcement echoed in the alien language of the Council's founders. Reth's face drained of color. "No, they've accelerated the timeline." "What did that message say?" Hannah demanded, grabbing her communicator. "They've declared a Class 1 biological threat originating from human colonies. It's the pretext they're using to establish a quarantine perimeter." He moved closer, voice dropping to a whisper. "But there is no biological threat, Commander. The quarantine ships are armed for orbital strikes." Hannah tried to contact her ship, but all communications were being jammed. "I need to get back to my vessel. Take the service corridors. I'll create a distraction at the main security checkpoint." Reth pressed a keycard into her hand. "This will get you to Docking Bay 6. Your ship is in 9, but the corridors connect." "Why are you helping us?" she asked. "Because this is wrong," he said simply. "Now go." Hannah ran, the stolen data burning in her pocket. The service corridors were narrow and dimly lit, designed for the Council's maintenance drones. Twice she had to hide as security teams rushed past. The Council station had transformed from a diplomatic hub to a military command center in minutes. When she finally reached her ship, the crew was already on high alert. "Commander, we've lost all official channels to Earth and the colonies," her pilot reported. "Something big is happening." "Prepare for immediate departure," Hannah ordered. "Emergency protocols. The station isn't granting departure clearance. We're leaving anyway. Now." As her ship disengaged from the dock, alarms blared. Through the viewports, Hannah saw dozens of Council warships activating their engines, forming into battle groups. "Set course for New Harmony Colony," she ordered. "Maximum speed." New Harmony was humanity's largest off-Earth settlement, home to over 6 million people. As her ship entered faster than light travel, Hannah reviewed the stolen files, her horror growing with each page. The Council hadn't just planned containment, they had voted for elimination. Humanity was deemed too unpredictable, too dangerous to be allowed unfettered growth. Hours later, they dropped out of FTL on the edge of the New Harmony system and immediately detected the energy signatures of multiple Council warships. "They're already here," the tactical officer whispered. "Get me visual," Hannah ordered, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her throat. The main screen activated, showing a nightmare. Council ships surrounded the colony, their weapons already firing. The orbital defense platforms, New Harmony's primary protection, were destroyed, drifting as shattered debris. On the planet's surface, bright flashes marked the impact points of kinetic bombardment. "Are they targeting the cities?" someone asked. Hannah couldn't speak. The targeting was precise and methodical. The Council ships were deliberately striking population centers, one after another. "We're being hailed by a Council vessel," the communications officer reported. "Ignore it," Hannah said. "Maintain our position just beyond their sensor range." For 30 minutes, they watched in horrified silence as New Harmony burned. Occasional emergency transmissions broke through the jamming, desperate pleas for help, confused questions about why the Council ships were firing, the screams of the dying. "Commander," her pilot finally said, "we can't help them. Not with one ship." Hannah knew he was right. "Set course for Earth. Maximum speed. We need to warn them before the Council ships arrive." As they prepared to jump to FTL, a massive Council dreadnought appeared directly in their path, weapons charged. "Evasive maneuvers," Hannah shouted. Their smaller ship dove beneath the dreadnought's firing arc, engines straining as they executed a series of random jumps to throw off pursuit. Through skill and desperation, they managed to break away from the Council forces, but not before catching one final glimpse of New Harmony. From orbit, the colony that had been humanity's greatest achievement now resembled a burning ember, its cities transformed into craters, its atmosphere filled with smoke. The Council ships were methodically working their way across the planet's surface, ensuring nothing survived. Initial casualty estimates, the science officer reported, voice-breaking, are at least 4 million dead, and rising. Hannah gripped the command chair, her knuckles white. Similar massacres would be happening at 6 other colonies, millions of lives, extinguished without warning or mercy. "Record everything," she ordered. "Every sensor reading, every transmission. Earth needs to know exactly what happened here." She paused, looking at the devastation one final time before they jumped to FTL. "And the Council needs to learn that humanity doesn't fall easily." As their ship disappeared into the darkness of space, carrying the evidence of an atrocity and the seeds of humanity's rage, Hannah made a silent promise to the dead of New Harmony. The Galactic Council had made a fatal miscalculation. They thought they were containing a threat. Instead, they had created one. The observation deck of Sanctuary Base offered a clear view of the asteroid field that concealed humanity's last hope. Admiral Hannah Park stood with her hands clasped behind her back, watching as a convoy of 3 mismatched ships docked with the hidden station. More survivors, more refugees. Each ship that found its way to them was both a victory and a reminder of their losses. "Admiral, the Defense Council is ready," a young officer said from behind her. Hannah nodded and turned away from the viewport. In the 3 months since the massacre, she had aged years. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and new streaks of gray marked her black hair. The provisional rank of admiral sat heavily on her shoulders, a battlefield promotion granted after most of Earth's military command had been killed during a peace summit that turned into an ambush. The command center was carved directly into the heart of a massive asteroid. Exposed rock formed the ceiling and walls, with hastily installed equipment giving the place a cobbled-together appearance. Around a central table stood the remains of humanity's leadership. "The Polaris colony has gone silent," Colonel Ta Kim reported as Hannah entered. His face remained expressionless, as he delivered the news, but his eyes burned with the same cold fury that had consumed him since losing his wife and 3 children on New Harmony. That makes 8 colonies we've lost contact with. Confirmed destroyed? Hannah asked. No confirmation. Just silence. He tapped the display, showing the star map with red markers indicating fallen colonies. But we should assume the worst. Dr. Jin Quan looked up from his terminal. Unlike the military personnel, the scientist wore civilian clothes, though they were worn and stained from constant work. The Council is being thorough. They're not just destroying our major colonies, they're hunting down the smallest outposts. Why was Earth spared? Asked one of the civilian leaders, a former governor of a mining colony. Not that I'm complaining, but it doesn't make sense. Hannah brought up the intelligence files. We've confirmed that a minority faction within the Council opposed the genocide. The Alacritians, the Voldari, and 2 other species threatened to withdraw from the Council if Earth was attacked. Since Earth houses our main fleet and planetary defenses, the Council decided to focus on the colonies first. They'll come for Earth eventually, Ta said flatly. They're just picking off the easier targets first. Which buys us time, Hannah countered. Time we desperately need. The meeting continued as they discussed supply shortages, refugee placement, and the integration of civilian vessels into their makeshift fleet. Humanity was on the defensive, scattered and outgunned, but not defeated. Not yet. Later, Hannah found herself in Jin's laboratory, where the scientist was examining a disassembled piece of Council technology. The lab was cluttered with alien devices salvaged from battlefields or stolen by daring raiders. You wanted to see me, Jin? Hannah asked. He looked up, excitement breaking through his exhaustion. Yes. I found something remarkable. He gestured to a neural interface helmet connected to a Council computer core. I've been testing how different human subjects interact with Council tech. Watch this. He placed the helmet on his head and closed his eyes. The alien computer activated, its holographic display showing streams of data. Council technology is partially psionic. Their dominant species evolved with minor telepathic abilities, so their tech responds to thought patterns. We've known this for years, Hannah said, trying to mask her impatience. But here's what we didn't know. Jin removed the helmet and handed her a tablet. Human brain patterns interact with their technology in completely unexpected ways. Where Council species access the systems in predictable, ordered sequences, human thought follows chaotic, associative patterns. Hannah studied the comparative brain scans. And this matters because their security systems can't properly contain human thought patterns. Jin's eyes were bright with discovery. It's like trying to use a square filter to block a liquid. Our minds slipped through the cracks in their security algorithms. Understanding dawned on Hannah's face. You're saying we can hack their systems. Not just hack them. We can access functions they don't even know exist. Jin pulled up another display. Council tech is built in layers, with older systems buried under new ones. Their telepathic interfaces only activate the functions they're familiar with. But human minds trigger unexpected activations, accessing forgotten protocols and emergency overrides. This is why they fear us, Hannah said softly. They sensed we could bypass their safeguards. Exactly. Jin nodded vigorously. It's not just our physical expansion they feared. It's our mental incompatibility with their systems. We're unpredictable to them in the most fundamental way. The implications were enormous. Council weaponry, navigation systems, even their communication networks, all potentially vulnerable to human interference. Their discussion was interrupted by an emergency alert. In the command center, Colonel Tai was directing a rescue operation. One of our scout ships found a civilian transport hiding in the Cirrus debris field. He explained as Hannah entered. Council hunters were closing in. Our team engaged to cover the transport's escape. The tactical display showed 3 small human fighters against a Council patrol vessel. The human ships darted around the larger enemy, using the debris field for cover. They're outgunned, Hannah observed tensely. Yes, but they're buying time for the transport to reach the jump point. Taz's face remained impassive, but his hands clenched as they watched the uneven battle unfold. One human fighter erupted in a ball of flame as a council energy beam connected. The second fighter immediately dove toward the council ship, firing all weapons in a suicide run that damaged the larger vessel's sensors. "That's Captain Min," someone whispered. "He had a wife on the transport." The third fighter seized the moment, slipping into the council ship's blind spot and launching a precision strike against its engines. The damaged council vessel began to drift, its power systems failing. "Transport is away," the communications officer reported. "All ships return to base." But the remaining fighter didn't retreat. Instead, it circled back and fired repeatedly at the disabled council ship, targeting its life support systems. "No survivors," Ta said softly, a grim satisfaction in his voice. "Just like they left none of ours." Hannah didn't countermand the action. 3 months ago, she would have insisted on following proper military protocols, taking prisoners when possible. But that was before witnessing the systematic slaughter of millions. The rules had changed. That evening, after processing the newly arrived refugees, Hannah met with Jin and Tai in her private quarters, a Spartan room carved from the asteroid, containing only a bed, desk, and the few personal items she'd managed to save. "Jin's discovery changes our strategy," she told Tai, explaining the breakthrough with council technology. "The colonel considered the information. So instead of just running and hiding, we can fight back. More than that," Jin added, "we can turn their own weapons against them." Hannah nodded. "I'm calling it Operation Prometheus, stealing fire from the gods." "Appropriate," Ta said with the first hint of a smile Hannah had seen from him in months. "But we'll need test subjects, council tech to experiment with. Which means we need to start raiding their outposts," Hannah concluded. "Small targets first, gathering intelligence and equipment." They spent hours planning the first offensive actions after months of desperate defense. As they worked, Hannah felt something stir within the cold determination that had sustained her since the massacre, a spark of hope. The next morning, she addressed the survivors gathered in Sanctuary's main hall. Refugees, soldiers, colonists, the remnants of humanity's reach among the stars. "For 3 months, we've been running," she told them. "For 3 months, we've watched as everything we built was destroyed. The council thought they could eliminate us as a threat." She paused, looking at the faces before her, haunted, grieving, but unbroken. "They were wrong," she continued. "They didn't eliminate a threat. They created one. Today, we stop running. Today, we start fighting back." A murmur ran through the crowd, not cheers or applause, but something more profound, the sound of collective purpose finding its voice. As the meeting dispersed, Dr. Jin approached her with a nervous smile. "I didn't mention this earlier, but there's something else about our neural connection to their technology." "What is it?" Hannah asked. "The council systems register human brain patterns as errors, glitches in the system. But errors are memorable. They leave traces." His eyes met hers. "Every time we access their systems, it's like we're leaving a signature they can't ignore or forget." "Good," Hannah said firmly. "I want them to remember who we are. I want our signature burned into their systems." Outside the viewport, the asteroid field concealed them from council sensors, a veil of debris protecting humanity's last, best hope. Behind that veil, the survivors prepared for war. The stolen council shuttle drifted silently toward the research station, its transponder broadcasting the access codes that would get them past the outer security perimeter. Inside the cramped cargo hold, 20 human soldiers checked their weapons one last time. 4 minutes to docking. The pilot's voice came through the comm system. "All systems nominal. They still think we're a supply delivery." Colonel Ta Kim moved through the tight space, meeting each soldier's eyes. These men and women had all lost someone in the massacre. Family, friends, homes. That loss had been forged into something deadly. "Remember, "We need their command center intact," he reminded them. "Dr. Jin needs access to their central database." The soldiers nodded. 6 months of fighting had taught them discipline. They didn't fight like traditional military units anymore. They struck like phantoms, vanishing before the enemy could respond. The shuttle shuddered slightly as the station's automated docking system took control. Through a small viewport, Tai could see the research facility, a sleek construct of silver and black, orbiting an uninhabited gas giant in a system far from the main Council territories. "Docking complete," the pilot reported. "Station security requests standard cargo inspection." "Let them in," Tai ordered. 2 Council security officers entered the shuttle's forward compartment. They didn't get a chance to call for backup. The squad moved with practiced efficiency, neutralizing the guards and securing the docking bay before the station even realized they were under attack. "Move," Tai ordered, and his forces spread through the station like water-finding cracks. Back at Sanctuary Base, Admiral Hannah Park monitored the operation from the command center. 6 similar raids were happening simultaneously across Council space, each targeting a facility that held something humanity desperately needed. "Echo Team reports success," a communications officer announced. "They've secured the fuel processing station in the Rigel sector." Hannah nodded, marking the success on her display. Echo Team would strip the station of critical components, then rig it to self-destruct. By the time Council reinforcements arrived, nothing would remain but debris. 6 months earlier, such coordinated attacks would have been impossible. But that was before Operation Prometheus changed the nature of the conflict. Dr. Jin entered the command center, carrying his customized tablet. "Status report on the test subjects. All neural interfaces are operating at optimal levels," a technician replied. "Team leaders are successfully interfacing with the repurposed Council systems." Jin had perfected the technique of rewiring Council technology to respond to human neural patterns. The breakthrough allowed human soldiers to control stolen Council weapons and ships with unprecedented precision. More importantly, it let them bypass security systems designed to recognize only Council thought patterns. "Admiral," a young officer called out, "we have an incoming transmission from our Alacritian contact." Hannah moved to a private communication station. The face that appeared on the screen belonged to Vera, an Alacritian diplomat who had secretly been feeding information to humanity since the massacre. "Admiral Park," Vera's translator conveyed her chittering speech into human language. "The Council Inner Circle has called an emergency session. There is significant disagreement about the handling of the situation." "You mean the genocide they ordered?" Hannah asked coldly. Vera's compound eyes shifted in discomfort. Some species never supported the action. Others are now questioning its wisdom. "Your resistance efforts have proven more effective than anyone anticipated." "Good," Hannah said. "What else?" "The dominant 7 are losing influence. Their military failures have weakened their position." Vera paused. "There is talk of seeking a negotiated solution." "They murdered millions of our people. There's nothing to negotiate." "Perhaps. But know this, the Council is fracturing. The unified front they presented 6 months ago is crumbling." After the transmission ended, Hannah returned to monitoring the raids. On her display, she could see that Tai's team had penetrated to the heart of the research station. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Inside the station, Tai and his forces moved methodically through the corridors. The element of surprise had allowed them to secure the outer sections with minimal resistance, but as they approached the central laboratory, the defenders had organized a response. "Control room is 20 meters ahead," Ta's second-in-command reported. "Heavy resistance. At least 15 security personnel." Ta nodded and pulled a small device from his tactical vest, one of Jin's creations. The handheld unit interfaced with the station's environmental systems, allowing him to access functions that even the station's commanders couldn't control. "Oxygen levels dropping in Section C7, a computerized voice announced over the station's comm system. As the defenders rushed to investigate the false alarm, Tai led his team toward the now lightly guarded control room. The remaining guards fell quickly. Within minutes, Tai's tech specialist had secured access to the main computer core. "Downloading research data now," she reported. "This is a goldmine, Colonel. Weapons specifications, shield frequencies, fleet deployments." Tai allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. "How long?" 3 minutes for a complete download." "You have 2, he replied, knowing Council reinforcements would already be on their way. While his team worked, Tai explored the laboratory. The research station specialized in studying captured human technology, ranging from simple agricultural equipment to advanced propulsion systems. The Council was trying to understand their enemy, to find weaknesses they could exploit. What they failed to realize was that humanity's greatest strength wasn't technological, it was adaptability. Where Council species relied on predictable strategies refined over centuries, humans constantly changed their tactics, learning and evolving with each encounter. "Download complete," the tech specialist announced. "Plant the charges," Tai ordered. "We leave in 2 minutes." His team worked quickly, placing explosive devices at key structural points. The station wouldn't be destroyed. That wasn't the mission, but its research capacity would be crippled for months. As they retreated to the shuttle, Tai activated the final part of their plan. Using Jin's interface device, he initiated an emergency protocol buried deep in the station's operating system, one that even the Council had forgotten existed. Backup systems activated, sealing laboratory samples and initiating a quarantine lockdown that would take days to override. Back at Sanctuary Base, the successful raiders returned to a hero's welcome. All 6 operations had accomplished their objectives, with only minimal casualties. As the stolen data was analyzed, the true magnitude of their victory became clear. They've constructed a comprehensive network to monitor all space in the former human territories, Jin explained as he studied the intel. "But there are gaps, blind spots their sensors don't cover. Can we use these blind spots to move our fleet?" Hannah asked. Jin nodded eagerly. "Better than that. I've identified a major Council military installation in the Vega sector. Their security is focused outward, not inward. They never expected an attack from within their own territory." "How heavily defended is it?" Tai asked. "Significantly, but with what we've learned about their systems, I believe we can bypass most of their automated defenses." Hannah studied the facility schematics, her mind working through the possibilities. "This installation houses their quantum communication hub for that entire sector." "Exactly," Jin confirmed. "If we could capture it intact, we could monitor all Council communications in a third of their territory," Hannah finished, "and potentially disrupt their ability to coordinate their fleets." The planning took 2 weeks. Unlike the previous raids, this would not be a hit-and-run operation. They would need to capture the installation intact and hold it long enough to extract the communication protocols and encryption keys. The attack force consisted of 3 repurposed Council vessels, their control systems modified to accept human neural interfaces. Ta commanded the lead ship, with Hannah coordinating from Sanctuary Base. Approaching target, Tai reported as they dropped out of FTL on the edge of the Vega system. "No indication they've detected us." "Proceed according to plan," Hannah ordered. "All teams, initiate Operation Broken Crown." The 3 ships separated, approaching the installation from different vectors. Using the codes they'd stolen in previous raids, they'd broadcast identification signals that registered them as maintenance vessels. The installation's outer defenses remained inactive as they approached. Only when they were within docking range did the facility's commander realize something was wrong. "Unidentified vessels, halt your approach immediately," came the Council transmission. "Authentication codes rejected. Defense systems activating." "Now," Tai ordered. All 3 ships simultaneously activated Jin's neural interface system. The human pilots mentally connected to the installation's defense grid, creating patterns of thought that the automated systems couldn't properly process. Weapon platforms that should have targeted them swiveled harmlessly away. Shield generators cycled through random configurations, creating gaps the human ships exploited. "We're in their systems," Tay reported. Docking procedures initiated. Inside the installation, chaos reigned as systems failed or acted unpredictably. By the time the Council defenders organized a response, human forces had already secured the main docking base. The battle for the installation was brief but intense. Council security forces fought desperately, but they were hampered by malfunctioning systems and confusion about which areas had been breached. 3 hours after the attack began, Ta stood in the installation's command center, surveying their prize. "Facility secured," he reported to Hana. "All opposition neutralized. We control the quantum communication hub." At Sanctuary Base, a cheer went up from the command staff. For the first time since the massacre, humanity had achieved a victory that couldn't be dismissed as a minor setback by the Council. "Begin data extraction immediately," Hana ordered. "Priority on communication protocols and fleet deployment information." As Ta's team worked, the implications of their victory became clear. With access to the Council's secure communications, they could anticipate attacks, identify vulnerabilities, and potentially turn the Council's own forces against each other. "Admiral," Jin said quietly as they reviewed the incoming data, "I think we've reached a turning point." Hana nodded, allowing herself a moment of cautious optimism. "The Council thought they could exterminate us like pests. Instead, they've created an enemy that understands their weaknesses better than they do." Across Council space, the news of the installation's capture spread rapidly. For the first time, the mighty Galactic Council faced an opponent that couldn't be easily crushed, an opponent that grew stronger with each encounter. In the cold darkness between the stars, humanity's resistance had found its footing, and the Council had begun to fear. Admiral Hannah Park stood before the assembled fleet, a sight that would have been impossible to imagine 1 year earlier. 47 ships of various sizes and designs filled the viewport behind her. Some were original Earth vessels, others salvaged colonial craft, and many were captured Council ships modified for human use. Each represented a victory, a testament to humanity's refusal to be exterminated. 1 year ago today, she addressed the commanders gathered in the war room. The Galactic Council attempted to wipe humanity from the stars. They slaughtered millions of our people without warning or mercy. The room remained silent. Everyone present had lost someone in the massacre. They expected us to break. Hannah's voice hardened. Instead, we adapted. We studied them. We learned their weaknesses. And now we strike back. The holographic display activated, showing their target, the Krell homeworld. The Krell had led the Council faction that orchestrated the genocide, providing both the political will and the military forces for the initial attack. Their High Counselor, Varric, had personally signed the extermination order. "Operation Nemesis begins in 12 hours, Hana continued. "This isn't just a raid or a strategic strike. This is our message to the Council and to every species that supported the massacre. Humanity survives, and we will have justice." Colonel Ta Kim studied the attack plan with cold precision. His personal squad would lead the most critical component, the capture of High Counselor Varric. Intelligence suggested the Krell leader would be at his country estate during the attack, relatively isolated from the capital city. "You understand your objective, Colonel?" Hannah asked when the briefing concluded. "Perfectly, Admiral." Tay's voice revealed nothing of the storm inside him. His family's faces still haunted his dreams, his wife and children who died when New Harmony burned. And now he would face the being most responsible for their deaths. "We need him alive, Ta," Hannah said quietly. "I know what he took from you, from all of us, but his value as a prisoner outweighs any satisfaction we might get from his death." Ta nodded once, his expression unreadable. "My team will deliver him as ordered." In his laboratory, Dr. Jin made final adjustments to the Nemesis device. The technology represented months of reverse engineering Council quantum communications, Where their previous operations had merely allowed them to intercept transmissions, Nemesis could actively disrupt the entire network. The simulations show a 94% effectiveness rate, Jin explained to the technical team. When activated, Council ships within the affected zone will lose the ability to coordinate. Their AI battle systems will default to basic protocols. How long will the effect last? Asked one of the engineers. 37 minutes before their systems adapt. Jin patted the device. More than enough time for our first wave to establish orbital superiority. As the fleet prepared to depart, Hannah received one final communication from their Alacritian ally. The Council is in disarray, Vera reported. The Tellarites and Volmerians have officially withdrawn their support for the conflict. 3 other species are threatening to follow. Whatever you're planning, Admiral, know that the Council no longer speaks with one voice. Good, Hannah replied. Then they'll be unable to respond effectively when we strike. The human fleet departed in waves, using the blind spots they'd mapped in the Council's detection network. By the time the first Krell sensors detected anomalies, the lead ships were already entering their system. Aboard the command vessel, Hannah watched as the operation unfolded. The first phase went precisely as planned. The Nemesis device activated, sending a cascade of contradictory signals through the quantum network. Across the Krell system, defense platforms went offline, warships lost communication with their command centers, and automated systems defaulted to basic functions. All ships, commence attack, Hannah ordered. The human fleet struck with coordinated precision. Their targets were military, orbital defense stations, shipyards, communications arrays, and planetary shield generators. Unlike the Council's indiscriminate bombardment of human colonies, Hannah had explicitly ordered that civilian areas be avoided. This is about justice, not revenge, she had told her commanders. We will not become what we're fighting against. On the surface of the Krell homeworld, Colonel Ta led his team through the forested perimeter of High Counselor Varick's estate. The 12 soldiers moved silently, using equipment that masked their life signs from Krell biosensors. Security grid disabled, his tech specialist reported. We have 7 minutes before their backup systems activate. The estate's defenses had been designed to repel conventional attacks. Heavily armed checkpoints, automated sentry guns, aerial surveillance. None had anticipated the small team of humans who simply slipped through the gaps, using the Council's own technology against them. They encountered the first guards at the main house. 4 Krell warriors armed with pulse rifles. Ta signaled his team to use non-lethal weapons. The guards dropped silently, paralyzed by targeted neural disruptors. Second floor, East Wing, Ta directed, consulting the building schematics they'd obtained from intelligence. The High Counselor's private chambers. They found Varick attempting to reach a secure communication terminal. The High Counselor of the Krell was taller than a human, with gray-green scaled skin and 4 upper limbs. He turned as the team entered, his yellow eyes widening in shock at the sight of human soldiers in his sanctuary. Impossible, he hissed, reaching for a concealed weapon. Ta fired first, the neural disruptor causing Varick to collapse. As his team secured their prisoner, Ta stood over the paralyzed Krell. This was the being who had ordered the death of his family, who had casually signed the extermination order for millions of humans. For a moment, his hand moved to his sidearm. 1 shot, that's all it would take. Justice for his wife, his children, for all the dead of New Harmony. Colonel, one of his team asked, sensing his hesitation. Ta took a deep breath. Secure the prisoner for transport. We're leaving. In orbit, the battle had turned decisively in humanity's favor. With their communications disrupted, the Krell defense forces couldn't coordinate an effective response. Individual ships fought bravely, but were overwhelmed by the disciplined human attack. Admiral, the tactical officer reported, Krell Central Command is attempting to organize a counterattack. Deploy secondary Nemesis devices, Hannah ordered. 3 smaller versions of Jin's device activated, targeting specific command frequencies. The counterattack faltered as conflicting orders spread confusion through the remaining Krell forces. Colonel Kim reports mission accomplished. The communications officer announced. High Counselor secured an en route to extraction point. A ripple of excitement passed through the command center. Capturing Varric had been the operation's most crucial objective, not just for the intelligence he could provide, but for the psychological impact on the Council. Begin withdrawal preparations, Hana ordered. We've accomplished what we came for. As the human fleet disengaged, they left behind a transformed Krell system. Their military infrastructure lay in ruins, their defense network crippled, their leadership decapitated. Yet their civilian centers remained untouched, a pointed contrast to how the Council had treated human colonies. Back aboard the command ship, Hana personally supervised as the captured High Counselor was brought aboard. The neural disruptor's effects had worn off, and Varric stood tall despite his restraints, his posture radiating contempt. "Do you expect me to beg for mercy, human?" he demanded as Hana approached. "No," she replied calmly. "I expect you to answer for genocide." Varric's eyes narrowed. It was not genocide. It was containment of a threat. Your species is dangerously unpredictable, a contaminant in the ordered society we built over millennia. And yet here we are, Hana said. Your homeworld in flames, your forces defeated, and you in chains. Perhaps the Council should have better assessed which species truly posed a threat. As the prisoner was led away, Colonel Tai approached. "He should be executed for his crimes," he said quietly. "He will face justice," Hana assured him. "But his value as a bargaining chip is too great. Already, 7 Council species have condemned the massacre. With Varric captured, others will follow. The Council is fracturing, Ta. And what good does that do for our dead?" he asked, the mask of military discipline slipping for a moment. Hana placed a hand on his shoulder. "It ensures they didn't die for nothing. It gives us a chance to rebuild." As the fleet regrouped at their rendezvous point, reports came in from across Council space. The attack on the Krell homeworld had sent shockwaves through the galactic community. Species that had remained neutral were now openly condemning the original massacre. Those who had supported it were facing internal political pressure to distance themselves from the action. The Alacritians report that an emergency council session has been called. Jin informed Hana. Several major species are demanding peace negotiations with humanity. "They're afraid," Hana observed. "They never expected us to strike so effectively at one of the founding species." "Are we going to negotiate?" Jin asked. Hana watched through the viewport as their fleet prepared to jump to FTL, carrying their high-value prisoner back to Earth. "We'll listen to what they have to say," she replied. "But from a position of strength, not desperation. The Council needs to understand that humanity won't be relegated to the margins of galactic society again." As their ships disappeared into the darkness, news of humanity's stunning victory spread across the stars. The species that had dismissed humans as primitive and doomed now spoke of them with wary respect. The Council, which had never faced a serious military challenge in centuries, found itself confronting an opponent whose greatest weapon wasn't technology, but adaptability. 1 year after facing extinction, humanity had transformed from victim to avenger, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Grand Council chamber on Earth's orbital station Unity fell silent as Admiral Hannah Park entered. Representatives from 23 human colonies and settlements sat on one side of the oval table. Across from them, delegates from 14 Council species waited nervously, their alien features revealing varying degrees of discomfort. 18 months after the massacre that nearly destroyed humanity's presence among the stars, the balance of power had shifted dramatically. Human forces now controlled key sectors of what had once been Council space. The captured High Counselor Varric remained in custody, a powerful bargaining chip in the ongoing negotiations. "Let us resume," Hannah said, taking her seat at the head of the table. Her uniform bore the scars of battle, intentionally left unrepaired as a reminder of what they had endured. "The Council has presented its initial terms for peace. We will now provide our response. Dr. Jin rose first, activating a holographic display. Our scientific analysis confirms that the Council's offer of technology transfer is substantial. Access to their gravitic engineering alone would accelerate our recovery efforts by decades. An Alacritian delegate leaned forward. We offer these advances in good faith, as the beginning of reparations for the great wrong committed against your people. Colonel Ta Kim's face hardened at the word reparations. His voice was cold when he spoke. No technology can bring back the millions slaughtered by Council forces. No concession can rebuild what was destroyed in an afternoon of violence. We do not suggest otherwise, the Alacritian replied quietly. But reconciliation must begin somewhere. Reconciliation. Ta nearly spat the word. When the architects of genocide still hold positions of power in your council. Outside the chamber, Earth shone below them. A blue jewel that had narrowly escaped the fate of the destroyed colonies. The rebuilt human fleet patrolled the system, a stark reminder of how humans had transformed from victims to a formidable military power. Later that evening, Hannah met privately with Jin and Tai in her quarters. The three had become humanity's de facto leadership, Hannah providing military strategy, Jin offering technological insights, and Tai representing the hardline position many survivors demanded. They're desperate for peace, Hannah observed, studying the Council's latest proposal. We could demand virtually anything. Jin nodded. Their coalition is fracturing. 5 more species have threatened to withdraw from the Council entirely if a peace agreement isn't reached. Good, Ta said firmly. Let them tear themselves apart. We should press our advantage while we have it. Hannah looked at her friend with concern. The colonel had never fully processed his grief, instead channeling it into the war effort. With victory now within reach, that unresolved pain was surfacing. And then what, Ta? She asked gently. We can't fight forever. We don't have the numbers. We've done well enough so far, he countered. Every engagement proves we can defeat their superior technology with better tactics. At a cost, Jin reminded him. Each ship we lose, each soldier who dies, we can't replace them like the Council can. Our victory at the Krell homeworld cost us 7 ships and 93 lives. Tay's fist came down on the table. Are you suggesting we just forgive what they did? That we accept some diplomatic apology and move on? No, Hannah said firmly. We demand justice, not just apologies. But justice isn't the same as vengeance, Ta. The debate continued late into the night, reflecting the larger division among humanity. Some called for continued war until the Council was completely dismantled. Others recognized that a negotiated peace, secured from their current position of strength, offered the best chance for long-term survival. The next morning, Hannah visited the detention facility where High Counselor Varric was held. The Krell leader had been treated humanely, another pointed contrast to how the Council had treated human captives. Admiral Park, Varric acknowledged her with a slight movement of his head. Have you come to gloat over your victory? I've come to understand, she replied, sitting across from him. I want to know how the Council justified the murder of millions. Varric's yellow eyes studied her. You still don't see it, do you? Your species represents chaos in an ordered galaxy. For millennia, the Council has guided civilization along predictable, controllable paths. Then humans arrived, adapting, changing, questioning everything. So we were killed for being different. You were contained because you were dangerous. His upper limbs moved in what might have been a shrug. The decision wasn't unanimous. Some saw potential in your adaptability. Others saw only threat. Hannah leaned forward. And now? Now that we've proven we can't be easily eliminated. Something like respect flickered in the alien's eyes. Now the Council must adapt or perish, an irony not lost on me. The conversation gave Hannah clarity about the path forward. At the next negotiation session, she presented humanity's terms. Justice for the perpetrators of the massacre, restructuring of the Council to prevent future genocides, substantial reparations for the destroyed colonies, and full recognition of human sovereignty. Additionally, she continued, the inner council that authorized the attack must be dissolved. All council decisions affecting member species must be transparent and open to review. The alien delegates conferred hurriedly among themselves. Finally, the Alacritian representative spoke. These terms are substantial, but acceptable with some modifications. There's one more condition, Hannah added. High Counselor Varric and the other architects of the massacre must stand trial, not just in a human court, but before an interspecies tribunal representing all council worlds. This caused visible discomfort among several delegates. You ask us to publicly try our own leaders, one objected. Yes, Hannah said simply. Justice must be seen to be done, by humans and by your own peoples. Only then can healing begin. The negotiations stretched over weeks, with both sides making concessions. Throughout the process, the philosophical differences between Hannah, Jin, and Ta became more pronounced. We're giving up too much, Tai argued after a particularly difficult session. These concessions weaken our position. They make peace possible. Jin countered. We can't occupy half the galaxy indefinitely. Jin is right, Hannah said firmly. Our strength isn't in how much territory we control or how many council ships we destroy. It's in ensuring humanity has a secure future among the stars. Eventually, an agreement was reached. The Treaty of New Terra formally ended the conflict, established a reformed galactic alliance to replace the old council structure, and created comprehensive protections for all member species. The trial of those responsible for the massacre would begin within 6 months. Not everyone was satisfied. Some human colonies refused to sign, preferring isolation to rejoining any alien alliance. Others demanded harsher punishments for the council species that had participated in the attack. 3 months after the treaty signing, Hannah attended the groundbreaking ceremony for the Memorial Garden on the rebuilt New Harmony colony. The devastated planet was slowly coming back to life, with new settlements rising from the ashes of those destroyed. Jin stood beside her as they looked out over the construction site. It's hard to believe we've come this far, he said quietly. 18 months ago, we were hiding in an asteroid field, just trying to survive. We did more than survive, Hannah replied. We changed the galaxy. Tai arrived late to the ceremony, his expression guarded. Since the peace treaty, he had struggled to find his place in the new reality. The war had given him purpose. Peace left him confronting his losses. The tribunal begins next week, he said as he joined them. I've been asked to testify about what we found on New Harmony after the attack. Will you do it? Hannah asked. Tai was silent for a long moment. Yes. My family deserves justice, not just vengeance. I'm starting to understand the difference. The ceremony was simple but profound. Representatives from every human colony placed soil from their worlds into the foundation of the memorial. Even more moving was the presence of delegates from several council species, including those whose governments had once supported the attack. They came unarmed and unprotected, a gesture of atonement and hope. As the sun set over New Harmony, Hannah stood at the edge of what would become a reflection pool at the center of the memorial. The water would eventually mirror the stars above, the same stars that had witnessed humanity's greatest tragedy and its remarkable resurgence. Admiral, a young officer approached. They're ready for your remarks. Hannah nodded and moved to the podium. Looking out at the gathered crowd, humans standing alongside aliens who had once been enemies, she felt the weight of all they had experienced. 18 months ago, the Galactic Council attempted to extinguish humanity's light among the stars, she began. They failed, not just because we fought back with unexpected strength, but because they misunderstood what makes humans who we are. She gestured to the memorial site around them. This place will honor our dead, but also celebrate what they lived for, our endless capacity to adapt, to forge connections, to find paths forward when none seemed possible. The Council feared these qualities, seeing only chaos and unpredictability. They failed to recognize that adaptability is not a threat but a gift, one the galaxy desperately needs. As she spoke, the first stars appeared overhead, reflecting in the newly filled pool at the memorial center. Among those stars were worlds where humans now lived in peace alongside former enemies, bound by hard-won understanding and respect. "We will never forget what happened here," Hannah concluded, "but we refuse to be defined only by our darkest day. If humanity's rage brought us justice, let humanity's hope now bring us peace." Later, as the ceremony concluded, Hannah stood with Jin and Tai at the edge of the new settlement. Construction lights twinkled across the landscape as building continued through the night. "What do you think happens now?" Jin asked. Hannah looked upward, where the reformed Galactic Alliance's observation ship maintained a respectful distance. "Now we rebuild. We remember, and we make sure nothing like this ever happens again, to any species." Tai remained silent for a moment before finally speaking. "My wife used to say that New Harmony was humanity's greatest achievement, not because of its technology or size, but because it represented our best selves." He took a deep breath. "I think rebuilding it, better than before, would honor her memory more than any revenge ever could." As they walked back toward the settlement, the stars continued their ancient watch over the planet below, a world that had witnessed both humanity's deepest pain and its enduring resilience. In the darkness between those stars, ships moved freely again, carrying the promise of a new dawn after the longest night. The end.